You need to move to the left or out of frame.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't have all right.
There you go.
I had to change my Twitch password, and I haven't fixed it on my TV yet, so I can't see where I'm at, where the box is, until I finish doing the ad, and then I can put it up on my phone. The way life works, folks. Yeah, so you were asking me what I did for Halloween, and real quick recap: I went to a medieval camping event. I had a blast. Partied with my friends Friday and Saturday night, and then came home Sunday night, dog tired. And like the curmudgeon I am, I turned off all my lights, locked my doors, and I went to bed. Not that all the trick or treaters in my neighborhood. There's a house up the street that like seriously decorates. Like they go all out, and all of the kids were gathered around there. None of them made it down to my block.
They will. The Welsh Turk is asking if you were put on elevation.
No, I was not put on elevation. I was inducted into the Meridian Order of the Bow, which is it is the Order of High Merit polling order grant level for service to the kingdom. It's a step below Pelican, basically.
Well,
So,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All
I
right.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Tech gremlins out of the way. Before we begin, disclaimers. One, we are for mature audiences only. If you are not part of mature audiences, you'll want to leave because we use profanity like most people use commas. Two, we are in no way, shape, or form associated with any game developers, game production companies, anything. We're just two individuals come together to talk shit and give our questionable advice.
And we're going to talk some shit today.
Oh, we got some shit to talk today. Uh, yeah, that's the two big things. I know that we have dice announcements, so
Yes, yes. I'm gonna burn through this real quick. I'm just gonna give an overview. If you want to see what these are, you're gonna use our portal. I'm gonna give that to you in a minute, and go check out the new releases on the Level Up site because they put out some stuff since we've been gone, man. They have put out a entire line of True Stone dice, the banded red, yellow, and blue, cluster red, green, yellow, and white. Cluster red, white, blue, and yellow, cluster green, yellow, purple, and pink, cluster red, blue, and yellow. So there's all of those sets are available right now. And then they put out an entire line of the heavy metal solid table shaker dice, the 35 millimeter dice. You can now get them single D20 in brass, copper, stainless, or if you got the wallet for it, fam, tungsten. And then they went one better. So this, just so you guys see, hold on. Where's my? This is a normal. I think this is a 25 millimeter D20. It's your standard D20. This is a 35 millimeter table shaker. They also just put out, for the first time ever, 45 millimeter heavy metal dice in brass, in copper, in stainless, and in tungsten. If you can't afford that shit,
that this is 45 millimeters right here.
yeah,
They are huge.
yeah, they are big. And imagine rolling a stainless steel one of those. And let me tell you, the difference in price between the 35 and the 45 is negligible. We're talking 110 to 150. That's the jump. It's not that bad. Different on the tungsten. Tungsten is much more expensive. Don't think I'm talking about tungsten there. Anyway, so you're going to go check those out. You're going to use our portal to do it. And to get there, you're going to go through https://bit.ly/capital L, capital U, capital D, capital Will, capital of, capital the, capital dice. That's bit.ly/LUD, Will of the Dice, all one word. Go over to the shop. Using that portal lets them know that we sent you, makes us look good. You want us to look good for the company. You know the drill. So go check those dice out. Go check out the new releases and see all those pretty dice they just put out. And our music today was provided by Patrick Taylor, our very own Pants. Thanks, Pants.
Awesome. If you notice, me and Locke are rocking dope ass Will of the Dice shirts. If you want to rock dope ass Will of the Dice shirts as well, then you can head over to willofthedice.com/shop and get yourself a sexy Will of the Dice shirt. There's character portraits, there's our logo, there's the OKSDM. So yeah, head over and check it out. Definitely, we'd love to. We'd love to see us on you.
Ooh, baby, I can be on your chest.
Yes, they. I don't know if they have hoodies yet or not. I'll have to look, but you can go look. willofthedice.com/shop. So, if not, I will talk to our Tech Monkey and be like, Tech Monkey, we need hoodies. Because it is getting into hoodie weather.
It is definitely getting into hoodie weather.
Oh, it's good to be back.
It is so good to be back.
We missed you guys. We did. It's nice to be able to take a break every now and then, but we miss coming and hanging out with you guys on Friday and just talking shit. So, today, drum roll. Backstories, part 2. We're going to talk some more about character backstories, NPC backstories, how to use them. So backstories.
But first, we got some news. I got some rules minutia stuff I want us to dip into real quick, real light, we're just going to hit it and go. It's going to be a laugh, and then we'll get to the real topic. So first, the news. I'm dying. I am dying. So, I don't know if you guys have been following, but one of the Sons of Gygax has tried to revive the TSR company name and is trying to put out his own system. And that system is designed to not be inclusive as D&D has become. It is marketed towards old school gamers who don't want to change, as if they couldn't just pick up the old books and play those. But they have said some really racist things on their Twitter feed over at TSR. They have said some homophobic shit over there. It's a mess. I don't want to support them. So Wizards of the Coast has fired back, and they fired back in the best way. In a new book that is about to come out, or has just come out, I'm not certain. The book is The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. They included in this book a new Ravenloft domain lord, Thaco the Gatekeeping Clown. Y'all, Google that shit. Go look at the picture. It is chef's kiss. It is priceless. His domain is a haunted circus that has special tortures for those who aren't normal. The more odd your character, the more the chances he wants to keep you. Wizards of the Coast, my hat's off to you. That is beautiful. That is well played. That is snarky as fuck, and I love every bit of it.
Okay, so for those of you that may not know, depending on your gaming history, back in the early editions, Thaco was to hit armor class 0. It was a convoluted, complex math equation that allowed you to determine when you rolled a d20 if you hit the character or not. It was one of the absolute worst parts of the old editions. I always joke and say bring back Thaco, but it's a joke.
So just so you, the best armor class in the game that you could have, theoretically, was 0. If you had a 0 armor class, you were basically a god. There were ways to get into negative numbers, but it was really hard.
Yeah.
Like, you could do it if you min-maxed the fuck out of your character. But, like, yeah, that's just... Like, it was a thing, and we all survived it, and then they got rid of it with 3 and 3.5, and we're much better for it now, because you don't have to figure out, all right, if my base armor class is 10 and my armor subtracts to this, and then I have to roll and subtract from my die roll to see if I hit a 0, it was... For a dyslexic motherfucker like me, Thaco was some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, Thaco sucked. Just... Every time you start down to do a session, you'd have to make 3 or 4 tables to determine Thaco. It was...
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is... Mwah. Wizards of the Coast, I salute you. That is... Wrong hand. I salute you. That is awesome. Okay, so that's the news. Let's get into the minutia.
News is done. All right, some minutia. Do you want the fun one first, the like weird thing I found on TikTok, or do you want to talk an actual rules as written versus rules as interpretation?
Let's do fun first.
Okay. So, I'm gonna give a shout out to a YouTuber and TikToker, D&D Shorts. They were the one I discovered this on. I came across my TikTok feed, and it is hilarious. So apparently, rules as written in D&D 5th edition, you can create a railgun that does 3,490 points of damage. Or no, I'm sorry, not 3,490 points. You can get a spear moving at 3,490 feet in 6 seconds. I don't even want to know what the damage equation is on that. But it'll blow straight through a dragon and blow half the mountain off behind it, I'm pretty sure. It's basically a railgun. Now, the way you do this is you hire 1,000 peasants. And you have them stand in a line. And you instruct your peasants to, on their initiative, they ready their action. And then the guy at the back hands his spear to the guy in front of him. And each one of them, using their readied action, passes the spear to the next guy. Which means that in 6 seconds, everyone is standing 5 feet apart. So they're standing so it's a line of 5,000 feet. And the spear, because everyone's action happens at the same time, the spear moves 5,000 feet in 6 seconds. I broke him. I broke Tyr.
Okay. There are certain logical, logistical things that have to come into play even when rule is written. And this is one of them. No.
What do you mean? No, that's the way the rules work. If 1,000 people, they all get a turn. In that 6 second time span that is a round, they all get their turn. And if they've all readied their action, they can all hand the spear to the next guy. That's all they have to do is hand the spear.
Okay, I'm going to make you roll initiative for each one of them. And I'm going to make you put them in order of initiative.
No, they just don't do it on the first round. They do it on round 2. On round 1, on their initiative, they ready their action for when X happened.
I still say no. Rules as written. This is why rules as written versus rules as intended is very, very important.
But it's some funny shit. The same guy, he also posited that what was it? I don't know if I should tell you this one. I kind of don't want to tell you this one because I kind of want to use it against you at some point. No, but I'll tell you. The most game-breaking pair of spells in the game when used in conjunction with each other are Rope Trick and Find Familiar. You know what Rope Trick does, right?
Right. Creates a pocket dimension. Small
that you
pocket.
can climb up. Right. So, and you can't be targeted while you're in your pocket dimension, but you can't target anything. Right?
Right.
And if you leave the rope there, other things can climb up into your pocket dimension. Right?
Right.
So, on my turn, after having cast Rope Trick, I then climb the rope and I get into the pocket dimension. I then use my Familiar's action to pull the rope up. My Familiar pulls the rope up into the dimension so nobody else can get up here with me. On my next turn, I use my interaction. I drop the rope out. I use my movement to move half my movement down the rope, so I'm now out of the pocket dimension. I cast Fireball at the people 60 feet below me. I then use the other half of my movement to climb back up, and then I use my Familiar's action to pull the rope back up with me. I am untargetable, except for 6 seconds, except for the span of my turn when I'm throwing the fireball, and then I'm back up inside.
The only thing that would happen that could do that is, and we're going to go back to the whole spear, is if the enemy noticed your pattern and readied their action for when you appeared.
Yes, absolutely.
Then they could target you.
Absolutely. Hey, look! I finally got my login working for Twitch. If you've noticed, I've been looking at my phone, so I could get my login for Twitch, so I could now see where I'm at and see the chat. Yay!
Yay!
So yeah, I need to be a little more this way. All right. Okay, so that was the fun one done. Now we're going to talk some rules minutia real quick, which is the spell Pass Without a Trace. Pass Without a Trace, rules as written, says you cast the spell on yourself. You select creatures within 30 feet of you to benefit from the spell. Right?
Right.
Now, generally, the way this is interpreted is if someone moves outside of your 30-foot range, they lose the effect. And that's and everyone pretty much agrees on that. You move outside the range of the spell, you lose the effect of the spell. Now, the question really becomes, if I move outside the range of the spell, and then I move back into the range of the spell, and I was one of the targets of the original casting, or I was included in the original casting. It wasn't the target because it's the target itself. I was included in the original casting of the spell. Do I get the bonus back now that I'm back within 30 feet? Or does it have to be recast for me to get the bonus again? So what do you think? How should exiting the range and coming back into the range work?
The way I would play it is if you exit the range and come back, they're going to have to recast it.
And I figured you'd say that because, yeah, I mean, I get it. It makes sense. I can see the argument for you were, yes, Kitty. You were one of the intended targets of the spell, and the spell is active within that range. And if you walk back in, it could be still be active on you. But that's not what Jeremy Crawford says about that spell. Jeremy Crawford says that each round, the caster, so long as they have maintained concentration on the spell and it is still within the spell's duration, which is an hour, each round, they can select targets within 30 feet of them, as many as they want.
But it doesn't say that.
It doesn't, but that's what Jeremy Crawford said about it.
Okay, me and Jeremy Crawford, I know Jeremy Crawford is the dude that writes the rules. But one day I want to sit down with this dude because me and him disagree on so much shit.
Yeah, no, I you know,
based on wording.
Based on what he said, based on what Jeremy Crawford said, I would be more okay with the interpretation that if you were one of the original people included in the casting of the spell, as a person that was going to be granted the effect, if you moved out and came back in, you can keep the effect. Based on the way he's interpreting it, I would take that over the every round I get to go, oh, hey, that peasant that just walked up, he's pretty cool. He gets +10 to his stealth. Oh, hey, I've got Pass Without a Trace up. It's been 50 minutes. I got 10 minutes left. I see trying to pick the pocket of an old lady over there. I want to help him out. I'm going to grant him stealth.
Yeah.
Because I've already got the spell running. Like, you can give it to anybody within 30 feet of you every 6 seconds for an hour, according to Jeremy Crawford.
And looking at the spell verbiage, I can kind of understand where he gets that from, because it is a concentration spell. So that means that every turn you've got to keep concentration on the spell.
Yeah.
And it does say that, for the duration, each creature you choose within 30 feet of you.
But see, it's for the duration. That's the tripping mark for me. Because it says for the duration, which to me says, on my turn, I cast the spell on myself. I select the people within 30 feet of me that I want to benefit from the spell. That's what I do on my turn. On the next turn, it's just up. I just have to keep it in the back of my mind. I have to focus on it to keep the shadows gathered around us. If someone steps out of that, though, and they come back in, the spell is effective on them for the duration. As soon as they come back within range, that's why I would interpret it that way more so than the way Crawford does. Because of that, for the duration, they were an intended beneficiary of the original casting, and the spell says for the duration.
Yeah, I would be more likely to allow you to leave and come back and it work than I would be for you to add new people.
Yeah.
But in my world, in my book, the way I see it is if you leave, then you've broken that chain. But then if it's an aura, if it's like an area of effect.
Yeah, I mean, basically it comes down to like it's basically that spell is functioning as a paladin aura.
Yeah.
It affects everyone that the caster deems acceptable treats as friendly, basically within their aura. And it's just an aura of shadows rather than an aura of. I think there's actually a paladin subclass that gets, I forget which one of the oaths it is, the Oath of the Ancients gets Pass Without a Trace as one of their always prepared spells. Interestingly enough.
Stott said invite him to cast guidance. I'm sure he would show up. Yeah. It's not like he's busy or anything. I don't know. I may send him an invite.
Send him an invite. What can it hurt? We need more followers on Twitter so he'll notice us more.
Yeah.
That's what we need. So, get your friends to follow us on Twitter.
Yep. You can find us at will_of_the dice. Follow us. Get your friends to follow us. Make comments that Jeremy Crawford needs to show up on the show.
Yeah. Hashtag cast tangent with Jeremy Crawford. Anyway, so let's get on to the topic now that we've bullshitted for a half an hour about news and rules. We haven't even gotten into the meat of the show yet. So previously, our first episode on backgrounds, we talked about fleshing out your backstory, building a unique and interesting character, and how we go about doing that, and how steps we recommend, tools we recommend, stuff like that. Today, we're going to talk about the other side of that coin, and that's when you're the DM and somebody hands you their backstory, how to work that into your campaign. I'm sorry, Ustad just said in the chat, hashtag cast blame. Cast blame. I like that. I'm going to cast blame a lot. I don't care if it's your fault. I'm still going to cast it.
Yeah, I like that. Cast blame.
All right. Anyway, sorry, I got derailed. I derailed myself.
Well, I got
I'm
to
gonna.
derail for just a second. The 45 millimeter dice that I showed earlier, that was made by Ustad.
Hey,
He made me a set.
outstanding. Yeah.
And now I got to convince him to make me a Han Solo blaster so that I don't have to do it. Because I have trouble putting shit together because of my hands.
Yeah. Yeah. He's apparently sending me a set of dice, and he asked me if I wanted a Han Solo blaster. He didn't offer me one. He just asked if I wanted it. I don't take that to mean anything. Also, I want to I want to apologize a little bit to the audience. I may seem a little manic today. I did not sleep last night, and I am jacked up on caffeine right now. So, yeah. So, Tyr, how do you incorporate backstory when your characters, when characters like me hand you 6 pages, typeface, single-spaced, 7-point font?
I take it, I look at it, throw it over my shoulder, ignore it. No. So, as I've said a gazillion billion times, 95% of what I do is improv. But I do have, a story outline that is ever growing, ever evolving. And so when I'm putting together a campaign, I look at the overall picture of what I want to happen. Perfect example, Scions of Oblivion, the Gates of Angramora, the key to the gates, Lilith, all that.
So you got the big broad strokes.
Got the big broad strokes. And then I wait until you guys give me your backstories and start putting in the finer details. And start creating branches of things that's going to happen. Now, sometimes those branches get too early because a guest star decided that instead of doing what they were told, they're going to go on a different route and send you to a different place. Talking to you, Amaranth. Supposed to send them to Glandamere. So,
oops,
y'all wound up in the Tusk Spire about 10 levels too early. But you think that it's over. But I know above table I can tell you this and you won't meta.
Yeah.
It's not.
Fair. Totally fair. Yeah. Keep going. You got any? What else? What else do you do with that? So you've got branches.
You're
take
setting
things
branches,
up.
Some of the stuff. So here's what I do. I sit down and I read the backstory, and I ask myself, what openings are there for me to interpretate, or to add, or to narrate, or to change slightly? What avenues do I have to take this backstory and expand on it to create story arcs within the campaign? That's the first thing I do. And it may be something small, or it may be a larger part. But then I start with I isolate the story arcs by themselves. And once I have the story arc outlined, then I start going, okay, how do I fit these in to the big picture? And that sometimes causes reworking my story arcs. I've got the idea, but it's like, okay, well, for a perfect example, the Tusk Spire, the Gorumesh and all that, that was predetermined. But then adding the Labyrinth of the Prophets and stuff, that gave an extra layer to the story arc. Dandy's parents being alive and just not remembering her gave an extra layer for leverage for Antivar LeRae, So that's what I do. I read through it, and if I have questions or if I will ask, do you mind if I take some liberties here or there? Or what do you think about this? And then I sit down and I create story arcs as if I was creating a one-shot or a campaign based on that character and then figure out how to mesh them into the main overall story.
Yeah, and I will say that I am as a player, I like to be surprised when the DM pulls shit out of my backstory and throws it at me. And so I try to leave those hooks in my backstory as broadly interpretable as possible, so that if the DM decides to bring something from my backstory out, I'm not like super invested in the minutia of it already. I've given him the broad strokes, and you can fill the details any way that makes sense for your campaign. And yeah, and that's basically, you know, when I've run campaigns, that's what I'll go through each character's backstory and I'll pick a couple of things, like, and I'll make notes like this would be a good hook to bring back in for them, and this would be a good hook to bring back in for them. And then once I have all of those notes, I try to make sure there's something for each character that winds up in the game from their backstory. Sometimes they get more than one because they wrote some good shit. You know, or it just fit with the world really well. Like, I can't ignore that. It's too good. It's too right in the world. And so you do that. But yeah, I make my, yeah, I have my broad stroke outline of the campaign. I have my broad, and then I take in a broad stroke outline with a couple of things from each character that make a good hook. I figure out where to stick them. Oh, well, what if this guy and his backstory is actually this guy I have over here? I can just change his name to be that guy's name, and now there's a connection. Now there's what's the word? There's pathos there for the character, you know, because this is personal now. This thing going on over here that they might have not cared as much about. Now they're invested already because they wrote that shit, kind of. Yeah, so I'll work those in, and then sometimes, you know, like I'll write down all the hooks that I see, and I'll very often, the ones that I don't use, I'll keep a list next to me at the table or somewhere handy. And if I, you know, because sometimes the players do shit you are not expecting. They go off in a direction you weren't ready for, and no, we never do that. And then you're like, oh, I've got an idea for over here, and you grab that notebook and you flip to their backstory, the hooks that they left for you, and you go, that one's going to show up right there because that'll work nicely. Or, you know, this character hasn't had a thing happen. What do we have in his backstory? That one. That can be right there where they're headed next. And maybe they'll think again about going over there, and they'll get back on track. Or not, whatever, you know. So, yeah, that's how I tend to run it. Looks like we lost the Fancy Bear.
Yes, we lost the Fancy Bear. Why did we lose the Fancy Bear? Oh, shit, I forgot. I can't do that. Oh, well.
Don't do that, Tyr. Whatever that was.
I clicked off of our cameras.
Oh, yeah, there it was. Yeah, I just saw it happen in real time. Hey, we're back!
We're back. Sorry about that. Locke hasn't had any sleep, and I've only had like 3 hours, so woo! Yay, caffeine!
Caffeine is good.
All right, I think this is where we're going to go ahead and take our first break.
That sounds like a brilliant thing, because my caffeine is actually running low, and
yeah,
you don't want me to run out. So, no one wants to hear me snore on camera.
I bet some people would. I really
mean, there's got to be some people with primal dom kinks out there that want to hear a growly sound come out of my throat while I'm sleeping.
So we'll be back. so much for hanging out while we took our breaks. They were a little longer than we intended, but shit happens.
I have coffee.
I have caffeinated soda.
Yay!
Whose name I cannot show, but the can is green.
Just do it.
So
Wait, no, that's Nike. Never mind.
I
Anyway.
have a personal announcement to make.
Okay.
I am 5 days without a cigarette.
Hey! Congratulations.
Been doing.
I
vape
am not.
only. Just been doing vape only. So, woohoo.
Lollipop says 6. Says you can't do math.
No, that's them. They're 6 days.
Oh.
I'm 5.
Oh, well, congratulations, Lollipop. Good for you. I applaud you. I'm not following your footsteps, but I applaud you. I don't smoke that much, really. I smoke. I know. I smoke about a pack and a half a week. I step outside to clear my head because one of my early jobs as a bouncer, you didn't get a break unless you went outside to smoke. That was the only way you got a break, and so my ADHD brain has programmed itself that when I need to reset, I go outside and I have a cigarette.
Okay, so I've got to ask y'all, do you have any questions regarding character backstories, backstory creation, incorporating backstories, or anything?
While y'all type your questions in the chat, we'll fill the void. I'm gonna talk briefly about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and that's.
I got a question.
Oh, we got a question. Hey, let's do a question.
How do you get players to make the proper amount of backstories? Well,
then that first begs the question: what is the proper amount of backstory? I tend to go a little overboard myself, I feel, but I want to so when I approach writing a backstory, I have a worksheet that I do for the character. It's got 7 questions that I answer first, and then I try and flush out some role play shortcuts for myself to help me play the character. I find the character's voice, although very often that changes the second I actually start playing because the voice will change as you interact with people. But then I take and I figure out what are the major events in this character's life, the things that are likely to come up in play, that I need to know what they are. And then I figure out what those events entailed, what they looked like. And then I write that shit down. And sometimes that stuff is complicated enough that you've got to write a bunch to convey what you wanted that to look like. Sometimes you don't need as much. So the actual word count and page number varies greatly depending on how hard it is to describe what you're trying to describe. That said, though, that's the formula that I use. I take what are the major events? What are the things that are important? If you took a feat that requires some explanation, you write that into the backstory. If you, things that are germane to your character class, you write that into the backstory, or your character subclass, as it were. Like, Ustad won a one-shot from us on a stream a while back, and we're getting ready to run that one-shot, and Ustad has asked me to play in that one-shot. So I was working on a character this week for that one-shot, and that character's a paladin. Paladins swear an oath at 3rd level. We are playing well beyond 3rd level for this one-shot. So me knowing the circumstances under which he swore his paladin oath are important to the character. It is one of the pivotal moments for the character. If we had played this character from level 1, when the character hit level 3, it would have been whatever happened in game was what happened to facilitate that oath being sworn and him thereby gaining his subclass. But for this character, because we are starting at higher level because it's a one-shot, I have to know what it looked like when he swore that oath. And I have to know how he got to where he was for that. So yeah, it's things like that, like how you have to figure out the important moments for your character, and you have to put them down on paper. And you can be as verbose about that as you want. I try to be frugal with my words when writing a backstory, because one, you want it to fit on the character sheet, and D&D Beyond includes a nice little box where you can put in your backstory, and you don't want to have to scroll too far through that box to find anything when you're in the middle of a game. You got to find a character's name that you wrote down in that backstory. Having to scroll through 18 pages of backstory is going to be difficult. So you're making it easier on yourself and easier on the DM, because the DM doesn't have to do as much work. But that being said, be as frugal as you can with your words, but you still need to convey your meaning. Basically, I say, getting players to give you the proper amount of backstory. If a player turns in a backstory that you feel is light, doesn't give you enough hooks to work with, go back to them and say, hey, I have a couple of questions. Your character has this on their sheet. When did this happen to them? What did this look like when it happened to them? Give me that. And get them to give you a little bit more to work with. If they turn in something that is way too long, they give you a novel. And believe me, my partner Mev wrote novels for his characters every damn time. I think would then pare them down to something reasonable to hand into the DM, but still had a novel sitting next to them while they played of what all had happened to the character. And sometimes that novel was finished when we started playing, and sometimes that novel never got finished. But he knew everything that happened to that character in that character's life. But you don't need to turn all that into the DM. The DM doesn't need all of that information. So, if they give you too much, go through and cherry pick it and cut and paste the important parts into a different document and save that for your own personal use, and have the rest of it if you need it, but you're likely not going.
Yeah. So,
in
your situation, Medulla T, what I would suggest, because you're saying that none of your players give detailed backstories, ask them questions. Ask them to name 2 important events in their life, to name what caused them to choose the path that they're on as far as being that class and that subclass. Things like that. Ask them, write down like 5 questions for them to answer. The other thing to do is that when you do get backstory information, make sure you use it and let the other people see, oh my God, this person's backstory is coming in, so that then they can get excited or hype about backstory as well. There is a range there. As a DM, you want as much information as you can give, but if they don't give you enough information, they're saying, do what you want to do, create what you want to create. That is, that is part of the agreement, the license, the exchange there. So by allowing them to, even if they're just a few bullet points or just a few questions answered, that gives you a starting place, and then you can start to weave and start drawing them in, and then they can get excited about the ordeal. And it's things like, why is your character adventuring? Why did they leave home? Why did they choose the class they choose? What is 2 good things that happened to them? What is two bad things that happened to them? What is their goal in life? Those 5 things right there, with just those bullet points, will give you enough information that would allow for you to weave in good backstory, just having those 5 questions answered. And
So I have
yeah,
I have a questionnaire that I fill out for every character. It's 6 questions long. The first question is he or she a hero? Which is, I think, a brilliant question to ask. Are they heroic? And if so, why? If they're not heroic, why? What in their character makeup determined that? Who were their parents? Are their parents alive? Do they have a good relationship with their parents? Why are they an adventurer? Often, with the way a lot of people tend to write their backstories, often question 2 leads directly to question 3. My parents were killed by a pack of angry gnolls, and I became an adventurer to wipe out all the gnolls on the planet. Sometimes those things lead right into each other, because people tend to write very tragic backstories because, and I get it. I try to avoid that trope as much as possible. But generally, the type of people who are drawn to the adventuring lifestyle probably did not have a happy childhood. And because probably the rest of the party are all going to be playing characters who didn't have a happy childhood, I try to write characters who kind of did, or at least who had a normal childhood or a reasonable childhood, had good parents at least, even if the circumstances of their childhood was bad, or there were bad things that happened to them as a child, their relationship with their parents was good. I don't like killing off my character's parents because it seems like everybody has dead parents. I don't want to be Batman. Number 4, immediate goals. What is it your character wants to accomplish as the campaign starts? What is on their agenda? What is the thing they feel they need to accomplish? And then, so that was 4. 5, are they religious? How do they feel about the gods? In D&D, the characters live in a world where evidence that the gods are real is present in the world. There are people who tap into divine magic gifted by the gods to cast spells. So there is no denying that the gods exist. Or if they do deny the gods exist, that's a really interesting character point and different than most characters. So, figuring out if they're religious, if they don't honor the gods, or they don't worship a god in any way, shape, or form, why don't they? And that gives you an interesting point or an interesting hook for your character. And finally, and this is my favorite question on this list, are they merciful? This one comes with an example. You've been attacked by a group of kobolds or goblins or whatever on the road. You killed all of them except one who is incapacitated in some fashion. They are unarmed. They are helpless. They are at your mercy. Do you kill them? And if not, why? What would your character do? Regardless of what the rest of the party might think, if your character was the one who got to make the decision, do they kill that goblin who is now harmless, or do they let that goblin go with the possibility that goblin might go get their friends and come back? How do they feel about that situation, and what do they do? That answering that one question tells you so much about your character, in my opinion.
And there's absolutely a ton of different questionnaires. You can go search and look, YouTube, Google. The biggest thing it comes down to, and we've said this a gazillion times, and we'll continue to say it, is go talk to your players. Go ask them, hey guys, look, I don't want to railroad you into a backstory. I don't want to be the one creating elements for your characters. You should be doing it. Can you do this? Have a conversation with them. Explain to them where you're coming from. Because a lot of times DMs are afraid to express where their feelings and stuff lie to players, and you can't be like that. It has to be communication. You all right there, brother?
Oh yeah, I just had hot coffee go down the wrong pipe.
Oh, that's
I'm
always
good.
fun.
Yeah. That I managed. It took me a second to get myself muted, and I'm sorry for hacking a bit on Mike, but I'm better now. I'm good. Yeah, there are some simple questions you can just go answer, and even though answering the simple questions might give your DM enough to work with. And if you're the DM and it doesn't give you enough to work with, ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. And if they don't know the answer, ask them to think about it and give them a week or so to get back to you. You know, like, and that's, I'm going to say it again. Take a drink, everybody. That's what session 0 is good for. Run a session 0 as a DM. Make sure everybody's on the same page with safety precautions and triggers and whatnot, and that everyone is good for what's going to be involved in the campaign, for the themes in the campaign and stuff like that. Figure out where people's hard limits and soft limits are. All of that stuff we've talked about practically to death on this channel. But during that session 0, help them flesh out their backstory. Ask them, bring up things in the session 0 that they might not have thought of yet if they didn't write a comprehensive backstory, and hope that in the moment it sparks something for them in that session 0, and then you have that to play off of the rest of the time. Because sometimes you don't know things about the character until you sit down and actually start playing them. And running a little short scene with each character during your session 0 might help trigger something for them that will help flesh out that character in a way you can use as the DM.
Exactly. And session 0 is so important. Running a session or two before the campaign gets started. We had the advantage of when cast was being selected for Wheel of the Dice, there was an audition process, and so people had to do multiple auditions, so they got to play their characters at different levels under different circumstances and find their character's voice. A lot easier, I think, than just trying to sludge through and find it once the campaign actually started. And I think that was very beneficial, and I think that going forward, anytime I start a new campaign, I like to start my players off at level 3. I like for them to already have their subclass and some of their goodies. It's just something that I have adopted. But I think that I will do a couple of just quick one-shots at level 1 or hell even level 10, just to give people a chance to find the voice for their character, to help them create that backstory, so that if they haven't found that voice or haven't got that backstory yet, it'll help them find that backstory.
Yeah, and I mean, all right, so when I started playing D&D 30-something years ago, my first DM, and this is, our first few games, we were all learning the system, and we played basic D&D. And then very shortly after that, we picked up 2nd edition and started playing 2nd edition. And once we got into 2nd edition, all of our campaigns started the exact same way. You started at level 1, wake up naked in the woods. And you have only vague memories of how you got there. It's all very hazy. And you had to figure out how to get gear. You didn't start with any starting money or any starting gear. You had your character, race, and class, and your stats, and that was it. And, you got rolled, and you're in the woods, and now you got to figure out what to do and find the plot hook and go from there. And it was a hell of a way to start. I mean, talk about jumping into the deep end feet first. Nothing like running through the woods naked at the beginning of the game. No armor, no nothing. And hoping that you can take something out and get something that works for you. So, I have an appreciation for that sort of start, for that sort of, ground up, in the shit hard knock approach to D&D, but I much prefer getting to make my choice of subclass as part of my backstory for 5th edition, because getting to choose that like, this is the path my character went down, and this is how, because when you start a character, at least for me, I'm the kind of character that I'm going to know what my subclass is going to be the second if we're starting at level 1 and I'm playing a character that doesn't get their subclass until level 3, there's a couple of classes that get it at level 1 or level 2. But if I'm playing a class like most of the classes that doesn't get it until level 3, you better believe when I sit down to play, I know where that character's going, and I'm going to be making choices to try and get me there. But I much prefer to have made those choices in my backstory, because it gives me more flavor for the character to start with. I don't have to feel like I had to role play to earn it, when there might not have been an opportunity for me to role play the things that I feel were important to denote that I earned that subclass. Because you don't know where the adventure is going to take you. You don't know if those things are gonna organically show up for you to enact them in the campaign session. So being able to write that as a story before you start, I think for 5th edition, starting at level 3 really makes a difference.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
No, and that's why I do it, so that you have the ability to create that backstory of why you picked the subtype that you picked, that archetype, why the character is the way they are up until this point, and to help you define who the character is early, so that you have a clear understanding of who the character is, so when the campaign starts, you don't feel like you're floundering trying to find a voice. You can focus on the game and enjoying that.
And I'm going to talk inside baseball for just a second, if I can. When we started doing the audition process, and I was playing Karak for the first times as a higher level character, we were testing him. We're testing him out with, so we brought in people to audition, and you auditioned multiple times, and you played at different levels with different iterations of the group and different people playing different characters, to see how the characters meshed together, to see what was going to make the best story and the best cast for the show. Playing Karak, I was a Tempest cleric, and the more I looked at his backstory, and the more I thought about where the character is starting from in the campaign, that War Cleric was actually more appropriate to his backstory, but I really wanted to play a Tempest Cleric. Fortunately, just before we started, as I was wrestling with the decision and if I was going to keep the Tempest subclass or I was going to go War Cleric, Tasha's came out. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything presented rules for switching your subclass mid-campaign. And I went to Tyr and talked to Tyr about it, and I said, I'm wrestling with this decision. Can we use these new rules for Karak? Can I start off with the subclass that makes more sense for him at the beginning, and then you present me with an in-play opportunity to switch subclasses to the other one? And he did a brilliant job with it. It was beyond what I wanted it to be. And now, as we're approaching, I think we're level 9 now, about to be level 10. He is what I built him to be originally, and the way I envisioned him from the start. But I still got to have that start that made sense for the character where the character started.
Exactly. Ustad wants to know, what if you get stuck in the middle of your backstory? Give the DM what you have.
Yeah.
The rest of it can come into play whenever. You can tell the DM, this is what I've got. You can fill in the gaps. You can sit down and, excuse me, no sleep is catching me. You can sit down and work out the rest of it with the DM, however you want to do. Just give what you have so far,
Yeah.
There's a lot that can be done with a little, as far as backstory goes.
And I would say, so most of us, I don't want to speak for everybody, but most of us tend to write our backstories linearly. You start at the beginning, and when you get to the point where the campaign is going to start, that's when you stop writing it, right? And you try to write it in order because that's the way it makes most sense in your head. You go from point A to point B to point C to point D. If you get stuck, if you get to point C and you don't know where to go from there, but you should hopefully have your outline of the major events in that character's life. And even if you don't know how to get from C to D, or what D, or maybe it's because you don't know what D looks like yet, it hasn't coalesced in your brain. You know what happens at D, but you don't know how it happens yet. Skip D, jump ahead to E, write E, if you've got a clear vision for that. Skip the points that you can't write yet and write the ones you can, and then start playing. Give that to the DM. Start playing, and as you make choices in game, that might inform you how D should have looked. Now that you feel comfortable in the character's skin, you can go back and say, "Oh, well, I know what he would have done here. Now I've played him enough that he's part of me now."
He says, I guess what I mean, do you let characters you are playing with influence, or do you keep it centrist? That's up to you. This is your character, your experience. If you've only got part of your backstory, you only made it to point C, as Locke referred to, and you're playing and you're vibing with this other character, and you're like, we should have these characters be lifelong friends, you can go back and add that. You can work together and add that. There's just so much. It is up to you. It's in your hands. It's your character. I'm not going to say, no, you can't be friends with this person because their backstory and your backstory. I may, ask that you both give me revisions so that, I can redo my story arcs. But I'm going to be happy that you're adding more story, because that gives me more fuel to work with.
And there's a point I want to make. I thought of it while we were on break, and I've remembered it now. And that is the one thing that I think players too often skip in their backstory, because it doesn't become germane to the game 95% of the time. And that's romantic interests. If your character is an allosexual, is a person who feels romantic entanglements or sexual attraction. Think about your life and how much the people that you have loved, your romantic and sexual partners, have impacted your life and changed you as a person. And then apply that to your character. Most people don't stop to think, well, did they have any relationships that were serious that affected them? And what did those look like? Now, I'm not saying you have to write a romance novel, but it's something to stop and consider when you're making a character. Has this character had romantic partners? What did that look like? Why did they break up? And asking those questions can help inform. You can figure out where, if that breakup happened here at point D in the backstory, that might be why this major life event happened for them. So keep that in mind too, because it's something that I'm guilty of it a lot, overlooking the former romantic interests of the character. And you know what? That's a great hook for a DM. Oh, one of your exes just showed up. How did that relationship end? Are you on good terms? Do you think you're on good terms? Do they think you're on good terms? Those are interesting questions, and you may not know the answer. You may know the answer from your side, from your character's side, but the DM might have a different answer because they're playing your ex now.
Yep.
So, interesting things to think about that might help inform writing your backstory. Like I said, you don't have to write a romance novel. You don't have to figure. You don't have to do the body count chart of how many people did they sleep with, and what were all of their names. But have a rough idea how much love has been in their life, romantic or sexually.
All right. Any more questions?
Yes, Welsh Turk. It might be fun to figure out their entire sexual history if that's what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you how to write your backstory. Check with your DM before you submit, Harlequin romance smut to them. Make sure they're into that sort of thing and actually want to read it. If they don't, keep it to yourself and play it in your head.
Make sure you've got a 5-subject notebook if you're doing Helga's, because she is a hoe.
Yeah, I might need a bigger notebook for Karak. I might. He's kind of a slutty boy.
No, they're talking about the orc porn. Yes, I wrote orc smut. I wrote orc smut in more than one campaign. that's the funny thing, is in more than one campaign I wrote orc smut.
I love that in one campaign we had to pay 10 gold for that book. And in another campaign we have 17 copies of it. Some of which have arcane notes in them. 17's a hyperbolic number. It's not that. But
you have several copies, yes.
Several copies. Yeah, and the note I was going to bring up earlier before the first question came in, and I'm just going to touch it briefly here as a note for making backstories, is, and this is a personal preference of mine, like I said, I don't like to kill off my parents in my backstory. I don't like to give my character a tragic childhood if I can help it. Sometimes it fits the character, but if I can help it, I don't. I subvert tropes, and I play against type every chance I get. Karak is a great example of that. Karak is a learned, well-spoken, full-blooded orc who chooses his words very carefully and has a very high wisdom. Which is not the stereotype of what an orc should be. And so, like, that's my playing against type. And he was raised in human society, in his very militaristic, but in a different way than his tribe. And so that's me playing with it, taking a trope and turning it on its head, and running with it. For the one shot that Ustad won, I took one of the most regal of races and the most regal of classes, and I am playing them as not regal as possible. So, like, we'll see how that goes. I'll let you all know next week how that went. But, yeah, so, like, that's my advice. If you don't know what to do, look at what the trope says you should do and flip it. Do something different, because it'll be interesting. And you want your character to be interesting. I mean, not everybody can play against tropes, because tropes are there for a reason. But if you have the opportunity, turn a trope upside down and play with it.
All right. If there are any more questions, speak now, or forever hold your peace until next week.
Anybody? Going once. Going thrice. Wait, no.
Twice.
Going twice. I think that's it. Maybe.
All right. Well, there's a 20-second delay, so I'm trying to be patient.
Yeah, we're holding out. I'm holding out for a hero till the morning light. That's all of that song I can sing.
Because I counterspell healing.
That is the truth. That man in DM jail.
Why is my soul black? Because I will counterspell heal any chance I get.
Motherfucker. Still so salty.
So salty. I need to get my mug that says "Tears of My Players." They taste good. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining in today. We hope you've enjoyed being here as much as we have. We go ahead and remind people of who we are, where they can find us, and get the hell out of here for the day.
Hi, gamers. I'm Loch Clark, and you can find me on the Book of Faces and the Twitter Patience at Loch Unruly. That's Loch with an H.
And I'm Tyr the DM, the world's okayest DM, and you can find me on Twitter at Tyr_the_DM. Before we go, I know we have Ambassador Dice coming. I have a D20 here. We're going to do a giveaway. We're going to give away a set of the Ambassador Die. The beautiful, beautiful cat's eyes. Let me do the counting here. 1. All right. Medulla's OT. Medulla OT. You have won a set of the Ambassador Dice. The blue cat's eye. I need you to send your shipping information to my email. Make sure I spelled it right. Tyr@willofthedice.com. It will be another week or so before I can get them shipped because I'm waiting for them to get to me. But we will get them shipped out. And congrats.
Congratulations, Medulla. They are some sexy dice. I can't wait to get my hands on a set. We've been waiting for them to come in for a while now. I am really cheers getting out the dice tray.
Yep.
There you go. Check those out. Here, wait, I'll do the official advertisement thing for them. These are a radical glass die that have a color shift and an optical. I'm sorry, an optical shift and a color gradient. The color is inspired by a blueberry and goes from dark to light on each die. And then the numbers are surrounded by a glyphic pattern that is reminiscent of stained glass from cathedrals. And the numbers and the glyphic pattern are colored in with a reddish pink. They are really cool dice. And I hope they serve you well.
May they roll many 20s and cause your players to scream in terror.
Amen. Just don't roll them to counterspell healing. Okay?
Yes.
For me.
Yes. Counterspell the heals. Any chance you get, counterspell the heals. And counterspell Revivify if you have a chance.
No! Why would you do that? No! Don't kill the characters. That spell costs a lot of money to cast.
It depends, Medulla. If up to level 3 you don't have to roll, but if they're casting the spell at say level 5, then it's 10 plus the spell level. So you do have to roll. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
We appreciate all of you.
We definitely do appreciate you guys. We do this for you guys, with you guys. Like we love each and every one of you guys, and we just so thankful.
And a special thanks to our moderators in the chat. Thank you guys.
Yes, definitely.
Appreciate your work.
Without you. That's why we gave Draco a one shot. I'll be working with them to get the details of that one shot with the cast. So we'll have to get, well, if they want it with the cast, or they can pick 5 of their friends, however they want to throw down, or they can mix and match. You get a one shot, and you get a. We will be giving away more one shots. Don't worry, we definitely will be giving away more one shots. It's one of my favorite things to give away because that means I get to DM more.
Keep this up, Tyr. We're going to start calling you, instead of the world's okayest DM, we're going to start calling you the Oprah of DMs. Check under your seat. You get a one-shot.
I'm okay with that. I get to DM more, which means I get to counterspell heals more. So, that's what I live for.
Damn it,
All
we
right,
talked
guys.
about this.
Next week, well, actually, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, here on Level Up TTV, we'll be doing Scions of Oblivion, or the Darkened Queen and the Shadowed Rose.
That one.
And then Sunday at 9, we do the Scions of Oblivion. Come, check them out. They're great campaigns, live action, lots of fun. Maybe giving a giveaway or two there as well. So, yeah. That's all I got. You got anything to add, Locke?
Be excellent to each other and revel on.
Until next time, if someone doesn't know, don't cast aspersions, cast guidance. Love you guys.